Vanuatu authorities have ordered the entire population of Ambae to leave the island immediately because of the volcanic threat. Moving 11,000 people to the neighbouring island of Pentecost is expected to take a week to complete. Dan McGarry from the Vanuatu Daily Post is on the line now. Dan, we're delighted to have you with us. Thank you so much. Can you talk about the logistics of getting 11,000 people off an island?
It's a pretty daunting prospect in a country of a little less than 300,000 total population. We are very limited in the resources that we can bring to bear. As you can imagine, air transport is just it's a non-starter in this kind of scenario. So we're stuck with maritime solutions. Happily, the transit distance between Ambae and Pentecost is not terribly far. Even with a very slow-moving inter-island barge, you're talking about a transit period of about 3 to 4 hours. So we will be able to manage fairly decent volumes of people, but each of these barges can take at most maybe 200 people. So there's going to be a lot of time taken to get the barges up there to the island, and it's going to take a lot of time to get everybody moved off. And then once we have them moved off, of course, we face additional challenges of supporting very large concentrations of population in a very small place.
Are there any people who are simply reluctant to leave, who just say, no, we're going to stay here?
Quite the opposite, actually. There have been very few holdouts, but very, very few. Almost not enough to mention. I heard a mention of one old man who had just finished building a house. He was very proud of it, didn't want to go. The very next morning he showed up once he'd seen the activity. So most people are convinced that the best course is to leave the island. The evacuations, I should say, have begun already. We'll be running photos in tomorrow's newspaper of children being brought onto the ships. We're doing a staged evacuation. The people most vulnerable will be taken away first. So far, the entire process has been well managed using only local resources. But once we get to the longer-term implications of this evacuation, it's almost certain that Vanuatu will not be able to go it alone.
Yeah, absolutely. So if they're forced to stay on Pentecost and be off Ambae for a long period of time, then you really are going to need the assistance of NGOs and foreign governments, aren't you?
It's almost certain. The problem with this kind of crisis is that it is completely open-ended. Yeah. It's impossible to predict how a volcano is going to behave and for how long, we're going to have to sustain this population. I was just on the phone with the New Zealand High Commission here only moments before you called me. They assured me that even though they haven't received a formal request for assistance yet, they're already beginning to prepare themselves to offer help.
Dan McGarry from the Vanuatu Daily Post, thank you so much for joining us, Dan. We really appreciate it. As Dan was describing, the entire population of that island, 11,000 people, bit by bit, about 200 people at a time on that car ferry being evacuated to the island of Pentecost, about 3 to 4 hours sail away.